So before Matthew can tell us about Jesus, he's got to tell us about the one who comes like Elijah, and that's John the Baptist. That's why Matthew 3 verse 1 says this: in those days, John the Baptist came. All right? He is the one we're going to read in verse 3. This is the one who was spoken of. This is he who was spoken of through the prophet Isaiah, a voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord, make straight paths for him. And so Matthew understands who John the Baptist, in a sense, really is. He is one who comes in the spirit of Elijah to call people to get ready for the Lord. And let me tell you, John the Baptist nails it. This whole spirit of Elijah thing, John the Baptist absolutely nails it. You see, you got to understand, Elijah was a really weird guy. He was extremely eccentric. He was strange in so many ways. And John, just as weird, just as strange, in the same spirit, all right? I mean, like Elijah, John preached in the wilderness. Elijah was known as the wilderness prophet. He was the one who was out in the sticks. He was born in Tishbe across the Jordan River there. And then at one point he went to King Ahab and he said, it's not going to rain for 3.5 years. And then God said, now you got to hide because he's going to try to kill you. And so God sent him again across the Jordan into the wilderness to a place called the Kerith Ravine. And there Elijah lived and spoke. Later on, he went south of Jerusalem to the wilderness there. He is a wilderness prophet. And Matthew tells us the same thing with John. In those days, John the Baptist came preaching where? In the wilderness of Judea. They both ate really unusual food, okay? They were in the wilderness and they ate really weird food. For Elijah, when God sent him to hide there in the Kerith Ravine, God says, look, I'm going to make a brook there for you, all right? He says, you will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens. That's not the football team. Those are the birds. These are the birds, the ravens, to supply you with food there. This is sort of the 9th century BC version of DoorDash, all right? Elijah would hang out, and the ravens would bring him food, but I don't think they brought him Pizza Hut or McDonald's. Ravens are ravens. They eat rodents, they eat insects, they eat worms, they're scavengers. And so for a time, Elijah's out there in the desert eating whatever it is the ravens brought him. I saw a kid's picture storybook about this, and the ravens brought him a nice baked bun. I thought it didn't happen. And John the Baptist, well, he didn't do much better. John's food, Matthew says, was locusts and wild honey. I'm okay with the honey, but the locusts, not so much. They were actually kosher for Jewish people, but that's what he ate. They both dressed strangely. 2 Kings 1, Elijah has a word for King Ahaziah at this time. And so he sends a message through his messengers, through the king's servants. And they come and they give Ahaziah the message. And Ahaziah says, all right, what did this guy look like? They replied, he had a garment of hair and a leather belt around his waist. And the king said, yep, that was Elijah, the Tishbite. And when John came, John's clothes were made of camel's hair, and he had a leather belt around his waist. Right? I mean, this is not comfortable clothing. These are not fine linens. John is wearing skins. It's uncomfortable, and it makes him look a bit like Tarzan or Animal or whatever it was. I mean, he's out there in the wilderness. He's got a leather belt around his waist. He's wearing these skins, this camel hair stuff, and it's just like, man, this guy is weird. Well, so was Elijah. And this is Elijah come back to prepare the way for the Messiah. One more. Like Elijah, John was extremely direct. The message that Elijah had for Ahaziah was this in 2 Kings 1, verse 6. Therefore, you will not leave the bed you are lying on. You will certainly die. Now, that's strong to say that to a king. You're going to just die, buddy. End of your life. I'm out. John the Baptist, when it came time for the religious leaders to show up, he says, you brood of vipers, you slippery serpents, you sneaky snakes, Scott Jose says. John was Elijah, come to say the Lord is coming. Get ready. God's day of judgment is on its way. get ready. Now, something I think we need to understand if we're going to understand who John is and understand what Matthew teaches about him, it is that John was, and I'll show you why I think this is the case, and I'll show you why it's important later in the sermon, but John was the last of the Old Testament prophets. Even though he appears in the New Testament, he's really an Old Testament guy. He's the last of those who point forward to Jesus. He's the last of those who will talk about the coming day of the Lord. And theologically, he is rooted very much in the law and the prophets, okay? Jesus himself in Matthew chapter 11 says this, "For all the prophets and the law prophesied through John," until John, but it's really through John. If you're willing to accept it, he is the Elijah who was to come. All right, so John was the last of the Old Testament. He had that mindset. He saw the Messiah coming and the Messiah just bringing fire and judgment, all right? So John the Baptist comes in the spirit of Elijah to call the people to get ready. And the question for us this morning is, what does he call them to do?